Impeachment legal battle. Let's bring in former Justice Department National Security Prosecutor Joseph Moreno. He is joining us now from D.C. So, sir, President Trump's lawyers say the articles of impeachment are constitutionally invalid on their face. Do the Democrats have a strong enough case as this trial gets underway?
Good morning, Vlad. I think we're going to hear a lot along these lines from the president's lawyers. Look, they want to give those 53 Republicans a reason to acquit him, right, to not remove him. But even better, they want to give those Republicans a chance to dismiss one or both of these articles. So you're going to hear a lot about this process argument, this idea that the articles are constitutionally imperfect. And the argument will go something along these lines, right? The Constitution requires treason, bribery, or high crimes and misdemeanors. The Democrats did not charge a crime in abuse of office or obstruction of Congress. Therefore, the impeachment is defective. Now, that's inaccurate. It's not true. It requires a little more digging, a little more look at 200 years of constitutional texts and the language of the framers and precedent. But it's an easy soundbite, right? It's an easy thing to point to say, look, there's no crime charged, therefore the charges are defective, you have to dismiss. And I think you're going to hear a lot of that starting tomorrow in the opening statement by the president's lawyers.
So the debate over whether or not to have witnesses continues to rage, especially after we had Lev Parnas last week come out with new documents and do a series of interviews. The Republicans continue to be resistant to that. But I wonder, having witnesses, would that even really change anything? Because, you know, I think most people sort of are expecting that the Republican-controlled Senate is going to is not going to do you use the word acquit? I don't know if you say acquit the president. I don't know if you're acquitted in a process like this, but certainly not. He won't be punished.
Right, Anne-Marie. I think the Republicans are in a tough spot, right? I think it's actually more difficult for them to argue we chose not to hear all the evidence and hear from all the witnesses than to say, you know what, we heard from everyone and we decided to acquit, or basically, like you say, not remove the president. So I think it's going to be a tough choice between one of two options. I don't see the idea of no witnesses really being realistic here. I think the Republicans have to either, one, send this back to the House and say, look, call your witnesses there, issue your subpoenas, collect the evidence, and come back to us. I think it's unlikely for a few reasons, but that's one option. The other option is to kind of grin and bear it and say, okay, look, we will give you one or two very select witnesses, but we'll control the process. And Mitch McConnell will use his majority of control of the Senate to sort of limit the time, limit the questioning, basically minimize the damage. And then at the end of the day, though, to your point, will it make much difference? I don't know. A lot of these Republicans have already broadcast how they plan to vote. So whether or not they feel extra pressure from the public as more witnesses and more documents see the light of day, yet to be seen.
Minority Whip Senator Dick Durbin addressed Rudy Giuliani's former associate Lev Parnas, who you were referencing there, Anne-Marie, and the new evidence released that's related to him, which directly implicates President Trump in the Ukraine pressure. He weighed in on how Democrats may try to use this evidence in the trial.
Well, I think it all depends on 4 Republican senators. They have to join us in really the pursuit of truth to make sure the American people hear the whole story. Whether that includes Mr. Parnas or not, I can't say. We have 4 witnesses that we believe are essential to start this conversation and to put the evidence before the American people. He has confirmed many of the suspicions we had about this Giuliani effort on behalf of the president and how far it went.
So how do you see this trial playing out as several of these moderate Republicans consider voting in favor of witnesses? I mean, the risk, of course, not the risk, but the flip side of it is that Republicans can also call witnesses.
Mm-hmm.
Sure, that's right, Vlad, and I think you will see some horse trading here. I think Republicans are going to be under a lot of pressure, not so much to hear from Lev Parnas, but to hear from John Bolton, from Mick Mulvaney, possibly from Rudy Giuliani himself. And I think the argument's going to be, look, if there's if there's no guilt here, what are you afraid of? Why are you afraid of hearing this evidence? And I think that's a pretty powerful point. And I think a lot of Americans, no matter where you fall, whether you're pro or anti-Trump, whether you're on the fence or you've already made up your mind, I think most Americans would agree evidence should be heard. We've taken all this time, spent all this energy. What would it take for a few more hours to hear from a few witnesses? So I think that's a powerful argument. I do think Republicans will relent at the end of the day. In exchange, they may get Hunter Biden. They may get Joe Biden. Maybe they'll even get the whistleblower. I think you'll see some trading there. But at the end of the day, those 4 to 6 Republicans that we keep talking about, they're going to be under a lot of pressure to see this evidence and a lot of criticism if they ultimately side with the majority of Republicans and block those witnesses from appearing.
All right, Joseph Moreno, thank you very much. As always, we appreciate it.
Thanks, Vlad. Thanks, Anne Marie.